All right, here we go. Mics are hot. Ready, camera one. Take one. We are rolling. Ready in 3, 2.
This Soonerscoop.com video is streaming in crystal clear 4K resolution on YouTube thanks to Enjoy Vision in Oklahoma City. If you're ready to see the rest of the world just as clearly, get your fresh perspective at Enjoy Vision. Enjoy Vision. This is where Sooner Scoop LASIX. Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosovich, George Stoya here from the Soonerscoop.com studios. Welcome back to the Soonerscoop.com YouTube channel. Got your green on. Happy St. Patrick's Day, George.
Yeah, you're not wearing any.
I got green on the hat. And that counts.
Oh, you do. You do.
So there we go.
There you go.
I got green on the hat. This is a recruiting report. We will bring in Josh McCuistion. A lot of movement possibly in the running back room, as we'll get into with him. But first, let us tell you about our good friends, and I do mean our good and personal close friends over at William & Lauren. As the official custom clothier of OU football, William & Lauren outfits your favorite OU players in custom suits that boost their confidence off the field to match their confidence on the field. Perfectly tailored clothing ensures every Sooner stands out in comfort and style at prices that make luxury accessible. Visit William & Lauren in Oklahoma City or online at williamandlauren.com. That is williamandlauren.com. Dress like a champion and make your style as legendary as Oklahoma football. We will be headed over to William & Lauren in about a week's time to get you fitted out for the big day coming up in the summer.
I'm excited. I feel like we've been talking about it for a while now, but it's finally coming up to go get fitted and stuff. I know you'll be there. My fiance's brother will be there, so it'll be fun to get to try on some stuff and pick out what I'm going to wear.
We're going to haze the little brother. Or is it older brother?
Little brother.
Little brother.
Nick.
All right. Well, no, I'm talking about Aaron's brother.
Oh, little
We've
brother.
already hazed.
He's
Nick.
there. Yeah, he's a little brother as well. So
all right, very good. Thank you to William & Lauren. Got the brick and mortar opening up in Tulsa as well for the 918 folks up in T-Town. All right, let's start the recruiting report. We bring in Josh McCuistion from Houston HQ here as he gets set to embark on a family trip, I believe. And Josh, welcome in. I would imagine that is the prep almost, ready to go. Are you guys ready? Maybe not so much more physically as mentally to take the girls on a excursion through the, what would that be? Caribbean or wherever?
Yeah, that we are headed from Galveston, the beautiful
Galveston's beautiful. Been there before.
Waters. Yeah, a lot of brown water to enjoy. And then head to Mexico for a few days and then come back. It is, Eddie, you're never ready mentally for these trips. Like you think you are. You're like,
That's
okay,
fair.
We've done this before. We know where we're going. But there are inevitable hurdles that you just don't see coming. Like you think you got it laid out, and then someone comes down a little sick or something happens, or there's just always something that kind of leaves you scrambling for the entirety of a trip.
The luxuries of childbearing, which we appreciate for bringing into the world, but I'm good for now. I know that.
yeah, we're not having kids for a while.
Okay, I was not going to ask. I was gonna, except for the little miscue, and you guys had to, do the situation. That's a joke, as we do here sometimes on the recruiting report. God bless everybody. We appreciate life. Let's start here, though, before we get to the recruiting stuff. Obviously, this is the recruiting report, but did want to bring it to the table here for the rest of the week. Oklahoma's on spring break this week, so there is no football practice. We will not have any, media opportunities. Everybody's out. I don't even know where the place to go is these days. I feel very old. After going out over the weekend in Oklahoma City, I came to the realization that it finally hit me. And I don't know if you're there, George, but Josh, I'm sure that you could, relate to a certain extent. I think I'm done with the St. Patrick's go out, give it my 14 hours in a Saturday, which is a very haunting feeling, but it also felt very good on Saturday evening to go home at 9:30 and it's like, I think I'm good for the rest of the evening.
I've reached that point. I don't going out for more than 3 or 4 hours is too much for me.
It's a lot. It's a lot of ask. What's going on though with the football? I know that we talked about it a little bit on the Around the Quarter to wrap up the end of last week. You put up some notes and it sounds like everything's going as well as it could here through the first handful of practices here in Norman.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, you definitely have some guys standing out. We've talked a lot about Giovanni Gibson. He's having a really good camp. Isaiah Satania is another name at receiver that I think is somebody that's really starting to find a groove and has had more opportunity with Deion Burks kind of being out recently. So those are two names. Jaron Kanik, we've talked a lot about him at tight end. Certainly sounds like he's fitting in there. And then offensive line, that's kind of where I wanted to get Josh's thoughts. But the early returns from practice are that Michael Fasusi and Ryan Foje, and I know that you heard some stuff over the weekend too, that they've just been sensational.
It sounds like both the true freshmen that came in, with high expectations have certainly delivered. I think a lot of it has to do with just their appearance physically. But Josh, what have you just heard just in terms of the overall product over the last couple days or the first couple days here for spring ball? And then obviously the two guys that we've talked about at length here with Michael Fasusi and Ryan Foje.
Guys, to me, it feels like people are almost waiting for like, okay, they're going to hit this freshman point at some point, right? Like that's almost this, like they keep kind of setting hurdles in front of these guys and they keep kind of clearing them. And you're kind of like, oh, okay, this is just moving faster than I think people expected it to. Guys, I mean, with Fasusi, he's what everybody thought he was. I mean, and there's so much that we talked about, his physical ability and all that stuff. He's so mature. Mike is a smart guy. He understands what's in front of him. He understands what's possible, but he's not one of those guys that gets lost in it. Like he understands like day to day, I've got to do this. I'm going to work. I mean, there's a reason he went to Oklahoma. Like he wanted to be pushed and be driven, and he knew Bill Beatonbow was going to cut any corners with him. And I think that's starting, you're seeing some of that already. Now, again, there's a long way to go. But, guys, I mean, with both of these guys, I hate to even use the word hype because the people I talk to are like, they're just doing the work. Like, it's not like it's he made this block, but then he missed 3. Like it's just they're just grinding day and day and day. And they're so talented. If they'll do the work, they're going to be really hard to keep off the field.
Josh, one other freshman I wanted to ask you about that we talked a lot on this show over the last year, Cortland Guillory. That's a name that has come up a few times, talking to some folks out at practice. And I think some of that's, they've been a little bit banged up at corner. Eli Bowen with his ankle injury. I think Jacoby Johnson even was a little banged up at times. But sounds like Cortland Guillory, especially this past week, had a really good week of practice. Does that surprise you at all?
It doesn't. And Cortland is kind of similar to Mike in a way in that, like, you knew the physical tools were there. You knew all that could happen. But it was like, how is he going to process information and how is he going to add size? Because, I mean, you guys have seen him. He's very lean. He's so tall that he's just very stretched out. Now, he's kind of deceptive because he's 6'2"-ish and probably, like 185 pounds. So it's not like he's small for a corner. He's just, he's a freshman or, a freshman in college, just wrapped up his senior year. So there's still a lot of physical development to go for him. But it doesn't surprise me, guys. I mean, like, Eddie, we talk a lot about how much we used to put Elijah Thomas on the show and how we'd run his highlights. We ran a lot of Cortland Guillory, too. Yeah. Like, there were, blocking punts, blocking kicks, interception returns, like all this stuff. He was a guy that just kind of was always around the ball. And I've said it 1,000 times. The thing that I look at a lot of times for a defensive player is, do they try and get you on the field offensively? Because, defender, especially as a corner, an offense can just kind of take you out of the game, and as talented as you may be, they just don't throw your way, so you can't hurt them. But with Klein Oak last year, they were like, okay, we're not letting this guy just not be part of the game. And so they just start running some wildcat quarterback stuff with him, and he starts breaking off big touchdown runs, and was a big reason that Klein Oak really had a pretty solid year last year. So he's one of those guys, I'm like, I think he's just got that thing. Like, and I don't know, you can't always quantify it, but it wouldn't shock me at all if he was in the rotation this year as a freshman.
Certainly good news there on the front, and especially at a position that we've talked about. They're going to need to build some depth because you don't know what's really going on, with Gentry Williams to an extent here during the spring, and then obviously moving into the beginning of the season. George, as we said earlier, George, you put up a bunch of notes on Friday. One of the good reasons, or one of the main reasons why you need to become a member of SoonerScoop.com, you can do that right now for $1 out there, as well as, I think we put it out there this morning. Sign up for the newsletter here with Bob being sent out to Raleigh, North Carolina for the men basketball. They make the NCAA tournament. We did an instant reaction. You can see that here on the Soonerscoop.com YouTube channel. Obviously, the women are going to be hosting at 1:30 on Saturday against Florida Gulf Coast. 31-3, right?
Yeah, they're good.
That's a damn good record.
OU faced them last year. They are a run and shoot type of team. They're going to shoot a lot of threes. They're going to get out. They kind of play very similarly to what Oklahoma does.
Okay, very good. Iowa coming to town as well. Yep. Murray State, the 6-11 game that Oklahoma would play the winner of. If they want to punch their ticket into the Sweet 16 for the first time under Jenny Baranczyk. One more football note, and this was the point of getting into that whole spiel. PJ Adebawore? Is he coming along?
It does sound like it. I think that you still want to see him, have some more twitch and things like that. And it's one of those. He's one of those guys. I don't know about you guys. Until I see it like on the field against a team, I'm just gonna have to wait to believe it.
Sure.
But it does sound like he's playing well in spring, and he, last year he was battling some injury stuff, and I think that's what kept him from being on the field. But I mean, look, he's arguably their best looking guy on the entire football team. And it sounds like it's starting to maybe click for him a little bit, which you would hope, maybe he can be on that same track as an R. Mason Thomas, where you heard all these great things in camp and then it never came to fruition, and then it finally did last year. Maybe that's what's going to happen with PJ.
Would be welcome news. R. Mason Thomas, obviously, Marvin Jones Jr.
Yep.
You would think that those are going to be slotted in as your two starters going into next year, Josh. But PJ Adebawore, I love the hype that comes and the hopium that comes with spring football, but certainly would be a nice development for an already pretty damn good defense next season.
Oh, this would be huge, guys. I mean, and, I know people love to – anytime a guy comes in and he's highly rated and he doesn't immediately hit the ground running, people are like, oh, rankings don't matter, and this is – he was – for some reason people love to throw out bust, like just almost immediately. And this guy was always raw. He fought through a shoulder injury his senior year. He's fought some stuff the entire time he's been at Oklahoma. This feels like – and George, you could probably answer this. Feels like the longest period of time he's actually been healthy, probably since he's been at Oklahoma. And so I think it's not surprising that it seems like, okay, the light's starting to come on, everything's starting to happen. And I agree with Eddie that start of the year, absolutely expect R. Mason Thomas and Marvin Jones to be your starters. If I'm betting, and if he stays healthy, I think he ends the year opposite R. Mason Thomas. Like I think that is – he's just that level of talent. And not to say that Marvin Jones Jr. is not talented as well. He is. I just think PJ and his style is such a good complement to R. Mason Thomas that I think they could work really well together. And again, PJ is I think people so far have just seen the limitations and they haven't seen the stuff he can do that makes him different than 99.9% of the population.
OU's defensive end room is good. Really good. PJ can make it great, make it elite. Yeah. I think that's what we're talking about here.
And same could be said for the continued development of Danny Okoye. I think Taylor Wine's somebody that everybody outside of the program probably sleeps on a little bit, but I know that when we've seen him, he lives up there along with Miguel Chavis.
Those two guys, Wine and Okoye, I would say they have the attributes, athletic ability, that they are going to wreck some plays and then they're going to make some mistakes. And for them right now, it's understanding their assignment, staying home. I'm sure they're great pass rushers. Can they hold up in the run game? Can they hold their blocks? All of those sorts of things. Those are the things that if they want to get on the field, they have to improve upon.
Yeah, not to mention Wyatt Gilmore, who is still certainly looks the part when we were out there at practice last week. All right, let's get into the recruiting stuff because I do think that as we move through the month of March, we're starting to get some, developments, and certainly at the running back position. A guy that we've talked about on here before, Jonathan Hatton, the running back out of Cibalo Steele High School down in San Antonio, tells Chad Simmons, Josh, that he has set an announcement date, March 22nd, just as a little bit of a memory bank here. See, Jonathan Hatton was committed to Oklahoma, eventually decommitted. It was thought to have been Texas A&M for a long time. He just made the visit up to Future Freaks, which we recapped here about a week ago. Certainly seems like Oklahoma has put themselves back into position for Cibalo Steele's Jonathan Hatton.
Yeah, guys, this surprised me. This is something Jonathan, and he and I have talked a lot. Obviously, he committed very early on, so there's been a good relationship. I've been to Steele, I think 3 or 4 times since he committed. So like, there's always just been we talk a lot. I guess would be the easy way to say it. And I didn't see this coming. This was not something I had on the radar. He was talking about taking his visits, and then right after his official visit to Oklahoma on June 20th, he was going to make an announcement. Now, I can't help but see the parallel between the fact that he just left Future Freaks, like you said, Eddie, and now, okay, I'm going to make a decision. I don't know. I'm not ready. Like, I know there's some predictions out there already for Oklahoma, and I'm not saying they're wrong. They may end up right. I don't know enough at this point to where I can say, yeah, like I feel really strongly about this if I'm Oklahoma. But I can tell you that from the sources I've talked to, Oklahoma feels as good as they have in a while. The side of this that causes concern is that some well-placed A&M people, they feel pretty good about this too. So I haven't heard anything that tells me their confidence has waned, anything's changed for them. But this is Oklahoma and A&M, and again, I get the impression that there's real confidence at Oklahoma that they can maybe get him back in the fold.
Josh, is there any correlation between this decision and Kaydin Jones? And I know we were going to get to Kaydin Jones and his decision.
Kaydin Jones announced on March 9th, basically, that the madness will come to an end at the end of the month.
Yeah.
How does that, would they obviously want both of those guys in the 2026 class? DeMarco Murray could get it wrapped up here in a matter of, 13 days, something like that?
It's a really interesting question, and I can't rule it out that they could both possibly be part of things. The part, though, that makes it tough for me to kind of see is with the addition of Ben Arbuckle, guys, and seeing what he did at Washington State and how he utilized some players, the guy that keeps coming back to my mind is Rylan Morris, the running back from Texas, that Oklahoma's really made a run with. He's currently a Baylor commitment, and I can't help but see, whether it's Kaydin Jones or Jonathan Hatton, what a good balance he would be to those type of players. God, couldn't get that out. Big physical guys, run through the tackles. Very, in Hatton's case, there's plenty of speed there too. Caden's more of kind of an instinctive runner, very natural. And I just think with the speed and ability to get outside from Rylan Morris, I just see that being such a good balance of skills. Hatton and Jones are just a little too similar to me. Like that's my feeling is like if Oklahoma has to pick two of the three, I wonder if they'd say, okay, Jones or Hatton, and then Morris is almost like a separate entity. He would be his own kind of box to check. So I think there is some connection, and I can't help but notice, guys, because like three or 4 weeks ago, I was like, yeah, Hatton hasn't given up on OU. OU hasn't quit there, but it felt like A&M. As it felt like Hatton and Oklahoma were starting to build and there was some momentum being gained, all of a sudden you started to hear like Kansas, Louisville, Oklahoma State with Kaydin Jones. It seemed like the conversation changed a little bit there. Now, again, with both these guys, Kaydin is very good at kind of keeping you guessing a little bit. So I don't want to say like I know what he's going to do, and I've already said Jonathan Hatton I think is a little bit more up in the air than some people may think, but I don't think they'll be part of the same class. That's just my guess. I think they're going to end up in different places, just because, like I said, I think there's a lot of similarity, and you could find another back that maybe complements one or the other a little bit better.
So you do think OU will get at least one of those two?
That would be my bet. Like yeah. I think that's the way that plays out. Kaydin, I don't think has publicly released a date. I can tell you that privately he and I have talked. He will announce after Jonathan Hatton. So maybe that gets played by ear. I don't know. I think that's an interesting question that we're going to have to let play out a little bit. But again, I do. I think Oklahoma will get one of those two. I don't believe they'll get both of those two, and I think largely it's just about trying to find the right two backs for the two slots, because when I watch Rylan Morris, I see a lot of the Wayshawn Parker kid that Arbuckle had at Washington State that was big-time speed, really worked well, kind of a one-cut uphill guy. That's kind of what I see in Rylan Morris. Different types, different players overall, but some similarities in the way they had success.
This is really interesting because if OU were to I don't know if pass is the right word on Kaydin Jones, or if Kaydin would choose to go somewhere else, it would just be interesting, just from the fact that Oklahoma kid Jinx, obviously a lot of great players have come through there that have ended up at OU, and he's the son of Kewan Jones.
Yeah, not to mention the lineage.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's fascinating to see how this is going to play out. If Hatton were to pick OU, or if Hatton picks A&M,
sure,
then obviously it would feel like OU's attention towards Kaydin Jones would make sense.
It's going to be super interesting how DeMarco Murray wants to play this. Josh?
Yeah, and guys, I mean, like, you go through the time, like, you talk about the years and years of Oklahoma recruiting at Jinx, and I'm trying to kind of pull it up and make sure I've got my numbers right. But the last time Oklahoma really pushed for a guy I say that. So prior to last year, it would have been like almost 15 years since Oklahoma really lost a guy at Jinx, and that was Jarrett Lake that ended up at Arkansas. And even Jarrett was a little bit of a, like, kind of in and out. There wasn't always a clear path of Oklahoma recruiting him. So, like, and really the one that came to my mind was Brian Pickrell way back in 2002, like when I was young and just getting started. But this is the last year, Cass Jacobson. Like, OU makes a run, they lose. So, I don't think this is – people will read this if this were to come to pass and be like, OU's losing their stranglehold at Jinx. I don't think that's exactly how I would say that, but it's interesting. George is right. I mean, to lose – if they were to lose a legacy and those kind of things. Now, I think we're all hinting at something where OU's going to have to probably make a choice between these two, and I think that's what's going to happen here. But at the same time, if – it's tough to not be able to take an in-state guy like Kaydin Jones if that's what plays out, because there's not that many guys that are as gifted as he is within your own state line. So we'll have to kind of see what plays out here.
Super talented. He was impressive, as you saw the video against Tulsa Union. We saw him up in the 6A playoffs this past, I guess that would have been November. This time of the year is kind of highlighted with a bunch of spring breaks, obviously, across the country. Kids getting up to see practice, as we saw last week. And one of those was a 2027 quarterback out of Louisiana. This might be a little bit of it wasn't Peyton Houston, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It was Malachi Ziegler, a 6'3", 195 quarterback out of Benton, Louisiana. Josh visited on March 14th, which was last Thursday. What can you tell us about just Oklahoma's overall interest in Malachi Ziegler, as well as just his interactions with Ben Arbuckle?
Yeah, guys, Malachi Ziegler's a kid I hadn't seen before the Under Armour camp in Dallas last month. And I want to say I mentioned him. Like, I think, Eddie, we were kind of wrapping up, and we talked about, anybody that impressed you. And I think I mentioned the kid. But this guy is 6'3", 200 pounds. Like, you talk about just physically looking the part. I mean, he looks like an outside linebacker. He is a big and really physically impressive guy. And of all the guys there, and I think I said this in one of the stories I wrote from the camp, it was one of those deals where when it came off his hand like true and pure, there was nobody there that spun it like he did. Like, I mean, he really has a lot of velocity, and I know some people in Louisiana that are, more familiar with the state's recruiting than I am, kind of talked about, for all the talent in Louisiana, he's the guy I'd bet on. Like, that there was a lot of Malachi Ziegler is just getting started, kind of could end up being like a top 10 player in the country type of conversation. There's a lot of belief that he's just going to move up and up and up in the rankings. I think it's currently number 29 in the On3 industry rankings, but had a chance to talk with him a little bit. We're actually supposed to catch up tonight at a little bit more length, but clearly love the visit. Mentioned, getting to sit down with Coach Arbuckle. Coach Coos is what I'm just going to call that guy, because that's much easier than trying to say that last name. And I think there was just a kind of ease to it is kind of what he put off. Like, they sat down, it all flowed really naturally. They felt, he felt good about the conversations they were having, and he's going to be back up for camp this summer. So we'll get a chance to look at him in person, and hopefully he throws it around a little bit there. But again, this guy has just got a world of talent.
Josh, so far with Arbuckle on campus, I'm wondering, when you look at quarterback recruiting, has there been any sort of trend, pattern? Like, what kind of guys, do they like or that they've been looking at?
It is interesting because, like, there has been a marriage of what was there and, the guys they were kind of already embedded with. And, obviously notably Jaden O'Neal and Peyton Houston kind of being the two frontliners. But at the same time, I don't think there's any question that they want guys who are going to be, 1, 2, kind of a quick read, maybe get to your third read. And if your third read's not there, hey, they've got the ability to get out of the pocket, go make a play with their feet. And I think it makes a lot of sense in the SEC when we know there's these elite defensive linemen that are going to create pressure, that are going to get you. You can't just sit back there. The days of Kyler Murray just sitting back there for 10 seconds and waiting for something to open up, that's not going to happen with the schedule OU faces these days. So I think it makes a lot of sense. But he does. I think the other thing I notice are he seems to kind of like a certain personality type, kind of I don't want to say reserved, but just not the guys that have to be in front of you and not have to, aren't always overly, I hate the word flashy because that's not what I mean. But just guys that I think are my brains in football. That's where my head is all the time. That's what I'm thinking about. And obviously that makes a lot of sense, and I think it seems to work well for him. He has a pretty good eye for it. But I think there is a very clear line of athleticism and just kind of a keep the main thing type of thinking.
Sounds like John Mateer. Sounds like John Mateer. Yes. Yeah. I don't know why your mic was out for a second there. Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. You're being silenced. Is what's happening.
The feud between Kerry and George continues.
It's taking a new toll.
It's because I don't have a. Oh, there we go. Goes. It's because I don't have a power drill.
That's it. You could have fixed it, but you didn't have the power drill.
Yeah, exactly.
Josh, just in terms of the next couple weeks, obviously, there are a lot of schools out on spring break right now. What's kind of the next, hurdle, or not hurdle, but what's the next big benchmark when you talk about recruiting? Obviously, the spring game has always been a big one for Oklahoma, just in terms of bringing guys in. Have you heard any latest developments in terms of what that weekend's going to look like for a prospective recruit?
No, not a ton. And that's like I said, because there haven't even been a lot of guys over the last few weeks that have been added to that list. And I part of me thinks, because again, guys, this wasn't Oklahoma's plan to not do it, to not have the spring game. So I think there is an element of, okay, how do we best incorporate and still make this a good recruiting event, make it to where fans want to come, so it can be kind of the spectacle we want it to be, and show all the players how big the support is and all these kind of things. So I think that's kind of being ironed out from what I can gather. Now, again, I'm sure there's a fairly clear plan, but I'm not seeing a lot of guys being like, oh, I'm going to get there that weekend. Don't take that to mean they're not going to be there. There's going to be plenty of visitors, but I just haven't heard that buzz where Oklahoma is really starting to make that push towards those guys getting here. But again, that's 3 or 4 weeks off. Almost every guy, and I get people all the time, who's the confirmed list? I mean, I've got a list of a few guys that are going to be there, but at this point in the game, I've got to go back and check with all of them again anyway. So anything you confirm or anything like that 4 weeks out, unless it's an official visit, it's not really that binding. Guys kind of change, or I had a track meet come up, or there's a million other things that can happen. And so, again, I would tell people that it's probably not going to be as big a list as we've seen in some years, but I still think it'll be very good. It'll still be meaningful. It's just probably going to pivot a little bit to, again, where we see Oklahoma putting more focus on a lot of kind of midweek visitors, which we've seen a lot of. We just mentioned Malachi Ziegler. Cooper Witten will be here the next week. I mean, there's several, there's big-time guys coming in all the time at this point in time. But, again, I think you're going to have to kind of see what plays out, what Oklahoma lays out for their plan for this event.
Should be interesting moving forward. Last but not least, do want to give a congratulations to CJ Nixon. Makes the game-winning bucket in the state championship game. Weatherford wins their first state championship, I believe, in basketball. I don't think it was their first state championship ever, but first state championship on the hardwood. The Oklahoma football commit, I think, scored 19 in the state championship. Had the game-winning bucket. Averaged just over, I think, 15 points a game in the state tournament.
Wow.
For Weatherford. So pretty cool. I heard he is just it's kind of fun to watch him ball all over people. Obviously, he'll be playing football when he gets to Norman.
Maybe he can come over and play some for Porter.
Well, I mean, it might not be that hard to recruit big men when you win this national championship. So
True.
That all begins on Friday, though, of course, against UConn. Ever heard of him? Two-time defending national champion. All right. Very good.
I got OU. What's the line on that?
I think UConn is an early 4.5-point favorite, something like that.
I'll take OU plus 4.5.
Okay, 4.5 money line as well.
Money line as well.
Wow. All right. These are unsolicited picks, and this is not a gambling website. All right. Very good. Josh, thank you. Good luck. We will hear from you when you return, and Godspeed, my friend. Godspeed.
I'll return with my sailor cap, Eddie.
Very good. Well, I think that's probably the best option. Oh, yeah, we'll talk to you on the U40. What am I talking about? You don't leave till the end of the week. You get one more run with us. For Josh and George, I'm Eddie. We'll see you back here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel.